On a sultry November afternoon in West Palm Beach, Florida, Terry Taylor picks up the phone in his waterfront office. "I know you've contacted basically everybody I know," he says, in a grizzled southern drawl. "So, I figure it's time you hear from me." After weeks of trying to reach Taylor, the elusive billionaire behind one of the largest car dealership groups in the U.S., or anyone that knows anything about him, word has finally made it back to the man himself. "I'll agree to answer a few questions," says Taylor, who admits his attempts at secrecy are by design. The 72-year-old has never sat for an interview. In fact, he rarely sits for anything, skipping out on most meetings even with his own associates and only agreeing to show up at conventions or conferences on the condition that he's not introduced to anyone. "He's like Batman," one source says. "You hear about him and you admire his work, but nobody has really ever seen him in real life." For 4 decades, Taylor has quietly built a sprawling empire in the shadows, though there are more than a few signs of him if you know where to look. After receiving a tip from a longtime source, Forbes began digging into Taylor and his Automotive Management Services, looking through dozens of Florida business records and speaking to 8 people who know of him, including analysts, rival car dealers and business partners. All told, Forbes estimates Taylor's net worth to be $1.9 billion. Most of it is tied up in his estimated 75% stake in Automotive Management Services, which owns more than 120 dealerships across America and is worth some $1.6 billion, by our count. But, like Batman's alter ego Bruce Wayne, Taylor also has a penchant for the good life. He's spent at least $180 million on lavish homes, including $30 million for Tommy Hilfiger's New York City penthouse in 2019. He also has a $45 million private jet with his initials TT on the tail. It's been roughly half a century since Taylor first got into selling cars. His father, Warren Taylor, opened a used Ford lot in Daytona Beach after returning from a 4-year stint in the Marine Corps. Terry worked around the dealership in his teens, and Florida business records show he was made vice president by 1975, when he was just 23. Not long after, his father decided to sell. "It wasn't like a family business," he says. "I wasn't handed anything." Using money scraped together from working for his dad, Taylor went into the business for himself, buying his first new car dealership, selling Fords, in Daytona Beach in 1982. He always dressed in freshly pressed shirts or suits, even in Florida with the heat, and it kind of brought everyone else's game up, says Gary Yeomans, who has managed that dealership for nearly half a century. He had this photographic memory. He can rattle off the numbers for everything he's owned. You can't get anything by him.